In Exodus chapter 35, 6 days work shall be done. But on the seventh day, you shall have a Sabbath of solemn rest, holy to the Lord. You shall have a Sabbath, holy to the Lord. 6 days, you got to do your work. But put aside a day just to rest, just to calm down, just to be still. Make it holy. Holy just means separate it. Make it unique. Make it different. Make it special so you can just rest on the seventh day. Now, for the people of Israel, when they heard these words, these were countercultural. Because the people of Israel, they were slaves in the land of Egypt. They were breaking their backs, working, toiling away. Not much different from the people in Silicon Valley today. They were just super worked. They had no rest. There was no like seventh day, sixth day. They didn't even know what day of the week it was. They were constantly at work. And then God brings them out from the land of bondage and he tells them, guys, I want you to rest. Because in those days, the people who rested were only the lords. Only the masters could afford to rest. The slaves, the bond servants, the maids, the workers, they don't get to rest. But only the lords, only the masters, only people who have things in charge, they can afford to rest. And God's telling them, guys, I set you free. I delivered you from bondage so you can enter into my rest. Just as I rest, just as I am the Lord of heaven and earth, I want you to partake in my rest. Imagine the sense of relief these people could have felt. Imagine them being known as lords, being treated as one, that they could afford to rest and not have to work 6 days of the week. You know, God doesn't stop there. You know, God doesn't tell them, stop, have a day of rest, make it holy. You see, God does something interesting. See, God says in Leviticus chapter 25, verse 2 through 4, he says, speak to the people of Israel and say to them, when you come into the land that I give you, the land shall keep a Sabbath to the Lord. It's not the people, it's the land. The land shall keep a Sabbath to the Lord. For 6 years you shall sow your field, and for 6 years you shall prune your vineyard and gather in its fruits. But in the 7th year there shall be a Sabbath of solemn rest, not just for you, not just for people, but for the land. A Sabbath to the Lord. You shall not sow your field or prune your vineyard. Wow. Look at what God's doing. It's not just people taking rest. He wants the land to rest. He wants the cattle to rest. He wants everything to be in a state of rest, to be in a place of rest that God himself is enjoying, God himself is having. Now that would translate to something like this today. Guys, got to do your work, go to your offices, etc. But turn down your servers. Turn down all the machines. For me, I work in a research lab. You know, stop all your cell culture. Toss it into the drain because you got to give it rest. What would that look like? Like, you'd be like, man, if I do that, wouldn't my boss complain? If I just like step back and like not just me resting, but like my work stopping, like everything around me just stopping, like what's going to happen? Wouldn't I lose my competitive edge in this world? Like what would that look like? You see, you guys, we live in a Judeo-Christian world. The laws of this land are formed on the basis of the Bible, where we do practice some kind of rest over the weekends. But when God first told them, they didn't have any of the people were just slaving away. And now God tells them, not only you rest, but you got to rest your land. You got to rest your cattle. You got to rest everything. Now, no wonder they were like, wow, like how is this going to work? Like if we rest our land, what are we going to eat? What are we going to eat on the 7th year? Like the land is rested. We are not sowing. We are not plowing. We are not reaping. So what's going to happen to the land? What the cattle going to eat? So they explain that. They express that. They say in Leviticus chapter 25, verse 20, and if you say, well, what shall we eat in the 7th year? If we may not sow or gather or crop, what's going to happen to us? If we just rest, if we just pause, if I'm working in this high octane like work culture in Silicon Valley and I just choose to rest, and take solitude, what's going to happen? Like, am I going to get fired? Who's going to give me my paycheck? Like, am I done? Like, that's what people were expressing there. But look at what God says. In Leviticus chapter 20, just the next verses, he says, I will command my blessing on you in the 6th year, so that it'll produce a crop sufficient for 3 years. So that when you sow in the 8th year, you will be eating some of the old crop. You shall eat the old until the 9th year when its crop arrives. Wow. God's saying, I'm going to do a miracle. I'm going to do a miracle such that even though you choose to rest, the land's going to provide you so much abundance earlier itself that you don't have to worry. You're going to have not just for the 7th year that you're resting, even for the 8th year, even for the 9th year, there's going to be so much abundance that's going to be produced in the 6th year. So what God's expecting is that we're going to enter into his rest in faith, in trust that everything will be all right. That God's got everything together. He's got your backs. So if you take some time off, that's okay. You see, God trying to teach his people the principle of living not by works, but by faith. Not by works, but by faith. How is your faith going to be tested? Well, by you taking Sabbath, by you keeping your rest, by you declaring that God is sovereign, God is Lord. So when I rest, God's going to feed into me, and then everything's going to be all right. In fact, because I rest, I'm going to have so much abundance that I'm going to be blessed. There's like plenty for 3 years. There's plenty for my co-workers. There's plenty for people around me, for my neighbors. Everyone's going to be blessed because I am keeping the solitude. I am maintaining my peace, my rest in God.